Aloha. We have Fred Hornbruch here today. Hey, Fred, how you doing?
Hi, very good. Aloha to you too.
I want to apologize if there's some feedback or some audio that we haven't been able to get rid of. So you might have to suffer us constantly talking as opposed to any kind of silence here.
Okay.
So Fred, I mean, I've seen a lot of your background and stuff. I've known you basically from when we were at Waimea Ocean Film Festival,
Yes.
and interacted with you there. I never realized until our good friend, the doctor, decided to give you as a recommendation to be interviewed, and that you actually have an ultra background too, ultra races and board member and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. I used to be a sprinter as a kid, and then as I got older, I got slower, so I went longer.
Well, I saw you had a knee injury in high school.
No, it was freshman year in college, fourth day of practice before school even opened. I was hit on the blind side and tore the cartilage in my left knee. And we bandaged the knee up, and I played 3 games, and then they said, "That's it, you're going under the knife." And I never played football again, other than touch football, but never tackle. So that ended my football career after a very successful high school career where I was All-State Connecticut as a wide receiver and defensive secondary. I played both ways. That was how long ago I played football.
Yeah, I saw. Paul Horning just passed away, and
Yes.
as I was growing up, I was in Chicago, so our rivals there were the Packers, and I went. I used to go to Notre Dame University to do what do you call them? A retreat, because I was raised Catholic, and most of the people at Notre Dame, I mean, and he was a very multi-talented person, but most of the people at Notre Dame also had spots that they said, "Oh yeah, Paul Horning was over here," and they point to some bushes one time, and it's like, I don't want to know what he was doing. I'm sure you weren't doing that when you were going.
There's an infamous Vince Lombardi story about Horning. Horning was out trying to find some poontang one night, and he went past sleep curfew. And Lombardi found that he wasn't in his bed, so he went after him, and he found him. And he said, "Well, that's $100 fine." He said, "I hope whatever you find is worth at least that, if not more."
Oh yes, the politically incorrect days of yore.
Yes.
Which I'm sure it's wow, I'm sure it still goes on, but when you're in high school and stuff, Jacob Head was also known as a famous football player, which I never realized. Our local veterinarian in Kona there and stuff. And it sounds like you were what do you they used to call big man on campus, certainly as a football star.
Well, I played football, basketball, and track, and I also played saxophone in the school band. I'm the only high schooler in the state of Connecticut that made all state football, all state track, and all state saxophone.
I didn't know
If
they
that's
had a saxophone.
if that's a claim to fame, I don't know, but I
Well,
don't
you
have.
could have you could have run for president then. There was a president who played
Yeah,
sax.
Bill and I used to jam together.
Hey, well, I used to debate Hillary because she went to New Trier, I think, high school and stuff when I
Oh
was
yeah,
at Gordon Tech in Chicago.
we had a lot of New Trier high school football players on the Yale football team. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Mike Powell, uh, not Powell. Mike, I've forgotten his last name now. He was an All-American center on offense. And at that time, we played both offense and defense, and he was a nose guard on defense. He played for Chicago Bears. And
Oh,
he
what was
also,
this? Mike? Huh.
it'll come to me. He also was on the track team, and he threw the discus and the shot put. He was a full-time athlete. And when I came in as a freshman, he was a senior. And when we went in the track locker room, his locker was next to mine. So I got to talk with him. It was a big deal then.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah. And I'm sure, let's see, back then, if he was a pro football player, he's probably getting paid, $10,000 a game, maybe.
Yeah, nothing like today. But he was a hell of a player. That football team, his senior year, had lost every game their sophomore year, split even junior year, and went undefeated and won the East Coast Lambert Trophy for football excellence in their senior year. It's amazing.
Oh, wow. And yeah, so you were in Connecticut, right?
Yeah. I lived in West Hartford, Connecticut for high school and New Haven for college. Yeah.
Did you brothers and sisters?
One younger brother, unfortunately, no sisters. He's 5 years younger. He was also in football and track, but he never pursued it the way I did.
Oh, okay. And he's still on the mainland, I would guess.
Yeah, he lives in Roseville, Northern California.
Oh,
And he has one son, my nephew, who was a great football player. He was an MVP at his high school in football, and he also ran track, but he never pursued it after that. So,
oh, well, when you were in high school and stuff and doing all three sports, including saxophone, which one did you like best, really?
well, I love football, and that's why I went out for football in college, and I thought I was going to have a big time career in college. And of course, I got hurt, and that totally ended. So then I went under the knife and rehabbed. And our coach was Robert Giegengak, the U.S. Olympic track and field coach for the 1964 Olympics. And we had two Olympians, as it turns out, on the track team, Wendell Motley and Jay Luck, and then Pete Jokel, who became an orthopedic surgeon upon graduation. The four of us used to run the mile relay, and we broke the school record, and they went on to the Olympics. Luck had the fastest 400-meter hurdle time in the U.S. trials in the world in 1964.
Wow.
Between those trials and the Tokyo Olympics, he came down with mononucleosis. And he still ran and came in fifth. He was a true Ironman. And Motley had the world's fastest 440 time that year. And he went into the finals of the 440 keying on an American who had pulled a hamstring or strained a hamstring. But Coach Giegengak couldn't tell him because Coach was for U.S. and Motley was from Trinidad. So Motley keyed on him.
Gotcha.
His name was Vince Matthews. Keyed on him in lane 7. Motley was in lane 5, and he came around. He figured, I got him beat. And Mike Larrabee from the U.S. came in on lane 1 and nipped Motley at the tape for first, and Motley got second.
Oh, and that was it.
Disappointment.
That was the Tokyo Olympics, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. That's when we were still running on cinder and clay tracks. No, they didn't even know what all weather was back then.
Composition track. I remember the first time. It might have been the Boulder race, where that one finishes in the Buffalo, the football stadium.
Yes.
And it finishes on the track there, and it was like, what the heck is this? You know.
Well, I used to run the Penn relays at Franklin Field down in Philadelphia at the University of Pennsylvania, and you never wanted to be other than in the lead because you just got sprayed with cinders. It was just awful. They couldn't keep the track hard because there were so many relay races going on. But we ran in that. We won the Ivy League, and we had a good team.
Oh, the Penn relays are really famous. Yeah, because you were again. What college were you in?
Well, I went to Yale.
Yale, yeah.
I ran Penn relays from 4th grade at Marion Elementary School, junior high school, And then I moved up to West Hartford, Connecticut. I still came down and ran Penn relays in high school. Yeah,
Jesus.
so I ran Penn relays all the way through college, from fourth grade through college.
That's got to be a streak of some sort.
Well, I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was terrific, except for the track. Now it's all weather. They also held the USSR USA track and field meet at Franklin Field. And I remember going to that on a July day when it was just super hot and humid. And the people in the 5 and 10Ks and marathons were all fainting. It was just amazing. Eventually, I ended up going to Russia for 8 trips through the U.S. State Department.
Oh, really?
And at that time, they kept saying to me, look, you run marathons. You've been running in different countries. Please come to Russia and run the marathon. And I said, well, I'm working in Volgograd, formerly Stalingrad, in southern Russia. Colder than you can, can't believe how cold it was. And they would run their marathon on Victory Day, February 2nd, when the Russians beat the Germans. That's the Battle of Stalingrad. And I said, no way am I coming over to run on February 2nd.
Well, then you and Jim Buddy have a common country that you both did marathons in.
Did he go to Russia too?
He did this thing where they got into some kind of group where they did 12 marathons in 12 days.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've had friends not only do that, but Dean Karnassus ran 50 marathons in 50 weeks in 50 states.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He used to run Western States 100-mile endurance run, which is what I ran 7 times. And I was on the board of directors of that race. So.
Oh well, I was holding back the Western States stories here. So
Okay,
you're in Yale, and what did you graduate? What kind of degree did you have when you graduated from Yale?
I graduated in June of 1964 with a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Administration and Engineering, and I went into engineering with Procter & Gamble for 3 years out of Yale. But before I went to work in New York City on Staten Island with Procter & Gamble, I took 8 weeks and went to Europe and bought a Volkswagen and traveled all over Western Europe before I went to work. Because I love travel. Ever since I was a kid, my mother said I learned how to run before I could walk. And I would run away, blocks away from the house, and neighbors would grab my hand and walk me back to the house. But not only was I an early runner, but I love to travel.
Now wait, was it a Volkswagen Bug or a van?
Bug.
Bug. Oh wow, yeah, I know.
Red Bug. Yeah, it was. I loved it. Stick shift on the floor. It was terrific.
I know lots of people that had a van. Did the same thing. I traveled throughout Europe and Asia and places I shouldn't have been and stuff too. But I had a job one time transporting Mercedes-Benz from, where were we driving from? From Rome down to Sicily. And a friend of mine got this gig, because his brother-in-law was in a multi national company and stuff, and they had Mercedes that they needed to be driven back and forth between Palermo and Rome. So I had a job doing that for a while.
That's a great job. I remember being in my little red Bug in 1964, and I was driving to Rome along the Italian Riviera, and it got into the low hundreds. It was just unbearable. And I said, no, I'll do it some other time. And eventually I got to Rome, but I turned around. And then I brought the car back to New York City where I was going to live and work. And so I would drive every day from Manhattan to Staten Island and back.
How long did you keep the European plates on it?
Well, I complied with the law. I think it was 30 days or something like that. Yeah. But I loved that car. And then after 3 years at Procter & Gamble, I decided to go back to grad school. And of course, I had to go from East Coast to West Coast because I decided to go to Stanford to the Graduate School of Business. So I drove cross country in my little red Bug and had a wonderful time putting up the hills and then racing down the other side of the hill. And I was all alone, so I was trying to race other cars. I mean, I just had nothing else to do. So,
did it have a sunroof?
no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a friend who had a bug with a sunroof, and you were able to change lanes by opening up the sunroof because the car would just sway over. Great cars.
So I got to California, and it's actually an interesting story because I had been recruited to go to Annapolis to the Naval Academy as a football player. They had bird dogs out, and they saw me play high school football, and so they had me take the physical and mental tests, and I passed. And they said, "Okay, we're going to sponsor you, free ride, 4 years at Naval Academy." And I said, and after 4 years, well, another 4 years. And I said, I don't think so. So I turned the Naval Academy down, and I went to work in engineering manufacturing in the food division of Procter & Gamble on Staten Island. And I became occupationally deferred during the Vietnam War because we were under contract to the U.S. military for food products. And we could easily convert to ordnance if we had to with our high-speed filling equipment.
Were you in the lottery?
No.
Oh, okay.
They didn't have the lottery yet. They were drafting 26 and down, and I was age 25, and they called me up, and I said, "May I have an audience with my draft board?" Sure. So I had to take the train up to Hartford, Connecticut, where I registered for the draft as a high schooler. And I went before the board, and they said, "No, it's very admirable. You want to go back to improve yourself, but you're 25 and we need you. You're going to get drafted."
Yeah.
You have a copy of the Selective Service Act? Sure. We have a perfect bound paperback, green covered copy about an inch thick. I said, "May I have it?" Sure. So I read that cover to cover on the train ride back to New York from Hartford. And I found the one paragraph, the one chapter that gave me hope that I could avoid being drafted, which said, if you matriculated, they would allow you to finish out that school year.
Yeah.
So that was on a Monday night. Wednesday, I talked with my dad, and he said, "Do what you want to do, Fred. Don't let that stop you." Thursday, I announced to Procter & Gamble I was leaving. Friday was my last day. Saturday, I subleased my apartment and sold my furniture. Sunday, I packed my bug. And Monday, I headed cross country to California, arriving in time for the Kansas-Stanford football game at the old Stanford Stadium.
Yeah.
On a beautiful sunny day, the way we have here. And I said, "I'm home. This is it." I can tell already. I hadn't even matriculated. So I matriculate, and I talk with the dean, and he says, "Let me write a letter." So he writes the draft board a letter saying that I had matriculated, and that was in October. We didn't hear anything until February, and they gave me a 2S student deferment to get through the school year. But I knew that as of March 31st, my birthday, that I was going to turn 26. And they probably didn't want me at the end of the school year because now I was too old. That's how I got through it.
Yeah, those are interesting.
My brother came along later, and he was in the lottery, and he got a very high number, so he didn't go either.
Yeah, very, very interesting times back then and stuff. So Stanford. So when I mentioned the tree, you know what the tree is.
Of course.
And so you were graduate school at Stanford. Did you play any sports at Stanford?
Only intramural.
Oh,
I played local community touch football, and then intramural football and running and stuff at Stanford, but nothing organized seriously the way I had been doing it. So when I graduated, I had to decide what I wanted to do, and I had all sorts of interview opportunities. And I started in on that, and I said, I don't really want to work for another big corporation the way I had with Procter & Gamble for 3 years. And I worked for TWA for 3 months between first and second year of business school in summer
Oh,
of '68, which gave me a pass to get on an airplane and fly anywhere in the world for nothing.
oh, wow.
I loved it. It fit right in with my travel. So I decided not to interview again with TWA or Procter and Gamble, and I finally figured out maybe I ought to go do my own thing the way I had when I was 10 years old and started my first of 5 businesses while I was still in elementary and high school.
Well, besides a lemonade stand, what were the 4 other businesses
It
that you
was not
started?
a lemonade is I was a moneymaker. I used to cut the lawn of our home as part of my weekly chore, and I went to my dad and said, "Dad, this push lawnmower just not giving us the cut we need." He said, "You're right. I agree." He said, "What do you think you ought to do about it?" I says, "I'm going to go look and see what's available in power rotary mowers." He says, "Terrific." So I come back, and of course I pick the most expensive one, and I tell him about it. And he says, "I think that's a great idea. Go ahead and buy it." I said, "Wait a minute. I don't have the money."
That ain't the deal. Wait a minute, Dad.
And he was smart enough to say, "I will be your banker. I will lend you the money. We'll set up a savings account at the bank. You're going to put money in, you're going to take money out, and you're going to pay me back principal plus interest." So I started cutting neighbors' lawns, and within a 3-block radius, I had everybody's lawn. I got into landscaping and hedge trimming and planting, and I made so much money. Not only did I pay my dad back, but I now had a growing bank account. That was much more lucrative than lemonade or newspaper routes. So then in the winter, it snowed back outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I lived in Marion.
Yeah.
So I went back to Dad and I said, I think I'm going to get a snowblower and I'm going to go around to my lawn cutting customers and remove the snow from their driveway and sidewalks. This is a great idea.
Yeah.
"You need money to buy a snowblower?" I says, "No, I got enough money."
That's okay, Dad.
He said, "Great." So I went back to my same customers and built on those relationships. And then I was in junior high school, and we had to take not only academics, but wood shop, metal shop,
Yeah.
electric shop, mechanical drawing, and print shop. Oh my God, print shop. Put a blank piece of paper in a press and it comes out with whatever you want on it. I went back to Dad and said, "I want to buy a printing press, but I don't have enough money for that." He says, "I'll lend you money. You have good credit with me."
Yeah.
So I went and bought a press and set up the Hornbruch press in the basement of our home in Marion, Pennsylvania. And I would do tickets and calling cards and stationaries and programs and so on. So that was my third business. My fourth business, we decided to take an automobile trip, which we did every year. And this one was going to be a 5-week trip, not just a 1 or 2 week. We
Oh,
were going to
wow.
drive out west from East Coast, and we got all the way to the Rocky Mountains and turned around and came back, went out the northern route, came back the southern route. And my father was a consulting engineer, and he would travel and always well dressed as a consultant. And we're out there, and it's dirty and dusty and so on. And he says, "Let's do a little research." And so we went around to the various stores to see if there was any kind of a travel shoe shine packet available. And at that time, which was 1957, there was none.
Oh, wow.
So we came back and developed a product which we trademarked called Chinese. Now the Hornbrook Press did all the printing for the Marion company that produced
Oh,
Chinese.
wow.
And Dad would bring the sales home. My brother and I would put it all together, and my mother would pack it up and ship it and invoice. So we had a little family business out of the basement. So then we moved. My dad, one of his clients offered him a job he couldn't turn down. He became vice president of manufacturing up in New Britain, Connecticut. So we had to move from Pennsylvania to Connecticut, but we lived in West Hartford.
Yeah.
We would commute every day. And then I turned 16, and I had enough money, and I bought my first car.
Oh, well, what was it?
It was a British Ford product called Vauxhall, Vauxhall. Stick shift on the steering column, 4-door sedan. And I said, how am I going to make this into a business? I became an Uber driver. I would take fellow students door to door to and from school.
So you
So,
were the kind of the first Uber.
yeah. So that was my fifth business. So I was kind of hooked, but when I went to college, the reason I went to Yale was Yale had more CEOs than any other college
Yeah.
in business.
And
And
probably,
that's what I want to be. I want to be a CEO.
yeah.
So the question was, do I do it for somebody else or do it for myself? So I went to Procter and Gamble, a very good company with excellent products, and they took me out to Cincinnati, which was headquarters, to give me an overview of the upper echelon of executives and the R&D that was going on. And I looked at that and said, no way. I'm
No
not
thanks.
40 years climbing the ladder for that. So I went back, and that's how I decided to go back to grad school. And from Stanford, I looked at other companies, and then I said, no, I'm going to start my own business. And I started an educational publishing company in the extra bedroom of my two-bedroom apartment upon graduation, and formed Creative Publications Inc. And we specialized in mathematics classroom materials from preschool through high school level by catalog mail order.
Oh,
My
wow.
roommate, while I was in grad school, was from California, and he had been an Army Ranger in Vietnam on 2 tours of duty. And so I got to understand somewhat what was going on in Vietnam through his eyes and so on. He
Yeah.
ended up going with Boston Consulting Group, and he's back in California, retired and so on. So we're still friends. I stay with him when I go back for reunions and things like that.
It's kind of funny. I had a girlfriend, long time ago. To be honest, I can barely remember her name sometimes. But her dad founded the company that does the SAT books and stuff so that people can pass the SAT exams.
Yep, yep.
And gosh, she was good friends with the actress that played in the Mermaid movie with Tom Hanks. And
Oh,
and
yeah, the tall blonde.
yeah. And it was funny hanging out with her. Gosh, and I can't remember her last name started with a K, but that company is a big company, with educational products and books to teach you supposedly how to pass the SAT.
Yeah, I don't know if it was called the Educational Testing Corporation or whether that was separate from his publishing. They may have been together or they may have been separate, but they were obviously working together.
Oh yeah. So
So,
that company, did you get bored? How long did it take you to get bored with that company? Your company?
well, I started in July 1st of 1969 upon graduation in June from Stanford. We lasted 9 months in the bedroom apartment, and then we had to move, and we found a bigger, and we just kept growing and growing, and 13 years later, Westinghouse came to us and said, we've tried to beat you, we can't, we want to buy you. And we said, well, I said, if you're serious, give us something in writing that I can take to the board of directors, of which I'm a member.
Yeah.
So they sent a telegram with
Of what? A telegram?
a telegram. And I looked at the price, and the board discussed it, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, we didn't do all this work for this. This is way too low. So I went back, and they were disappointed. So they made a second bid, still too low. And by that time, I said, I'm going to let other companies in this field know that Westinghouse is trying to buy us. And that jacked the price.
Bidding war.
A bidding war. And finally, they came in at a number that was acceptable, and we sold Creative Publications Inc. to Westinghouse, a publicly traded company, but we had kept audited financials, so we were really clean.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a business background, so I knew what I had to do if we were ever to sell it. How we're going to exit this thing. So we sold it, and my partner went off and did his own thing, and I stayed on for transition. And I couldn't take it because every decision I had to go back to Pittsburgh to Westinghouse headquarters to get yay or nay. And I said,
Yeah, you weren't used to that. Yeah.
So after 9 months, I gracefully bowed out. And it did very well afterward until the Westinghouse Electric Board decided to divest of all of those kinds of subsidiaries that it had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Creative was, along with others, sold. And I never looked back because during the time I sold Creative and moved out, and the time I found and bought another company, which I'll get to, that's when I came to Hawaii to do my first Ironman.
I was going to say you were like in your mid-30s then, right?
I was exactly 40 years old.
So, but in your 30s, were you when you were running the company and stuff? Were you doing races? Were
Yes,
you?
I was doing short races, and I did my first marathon, which was Honolulu Marathon in December of 1978. And I hit the wall 3 times. I was not properly trained. I said, I'll never do this again. And of course, not only did I do marathons around the world on all 7 continents, but I ended up doing 50-mile races, 100-mile races, Ultraman triathlons.
Yeah, I know the exact 3 places where you probably hit the wall too. Somebody else, I forget who I interviewed. It might have been actually Jim Gibbons my last interview, where I think his first marathon. No, it wasn't Jim. It was somebody else. A lot of people, their first marathon is Honolulu. Yeah. They think it's great. It's going to be warm and everything. They don't realize that there's a lot of other stuff involved when it's warm. But
it's interesting, that race, which was 1978, there are only 5,000 starters versus what it has become.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I finally walked across the finish line, determined by running the last 100 yards, which I should have never done, to break 4 hours. I came in at 59, 58, and oh God, my legs hurt. So I'm under a tree in Kapiolani Park, and I'm just agonizing and drinking. And the winner, Duncan McDonald, is being interviewed on television within earshot.
I remember Duncan, yeah.
And he's saying, I really admire these guys who can run 3, 4, 5 hours. He does it in 2, And I'm listening to this and say, well, thank you very much. So I ran Honolulu probably at least 3, maybe 4 times. And that got me started. And then when I sold Creative and I had time to myself, I said, it's time to get back into college level track shape.
Yeah.
I started training big time. And I'd heard about the Ironman when I watched ABC Wide World of Sports coverage of Julie Moss crawling across the finish line.
Yeah.
That was
She's
so
still
dramatic.
crawling now too.
Yeah. I said, that's what I want to do. Not crawl across the finish line. So, because I like the 3 sports aspects, swim, bike, and run, not just running. So I came over and I did it, and I finished about middle of the pack. And I said, man, this is cool. I'm back in shape. And I had been crewing and helping friends run the Western States. So I said, I think that my next race will be Western States 100. So I went from Ironman to 100-mile race.
Well, and people have to understand, back then at the Ironman, your qualifications to get in were they asked you, have you ever done a marathon? Well, yeah. Okay, you're in.
That was a lot easier then. I came back 10 years later at age 50 and did it again. And then at age 65, which would have been the 25th anniversary of the first time I ran Ironman, I tried to qualify. I didn't get in through the lottery. And I went to West England to qualify. And I didn't finish within the appropriate time. And that's when I hung up my triathlon equipment.
Yeah, what was the club that you could join to get extra lottery slots? Oh, I was always in that. You paid like $100 and you were in an Ironman club.
Yeah.
And and stuff.
Well, Ironman I did in West England was put on by Rotary International Club,
Oh,
which if you qualified there, you would get into Ironman Hawaii, but I
yeah.
didn't qualify. And that was in '07.
Oh, that wasn't that long ago then. Yeah.
By 2011, my knees were totally shot because I'd been running all. And the doctor said, there's nothing more I can do. You either live with the pain or you replace them. I said, okay, take them both out. Let's go. So I had both knees replaced in December of 2011. Took me 3 months to sort of recover. And I decided, okay, I can't run marathons and
Yeah.
ultra, no more triathlons, but I can still race. My new racing is sitting down.
Canoes.
In canoes, exactly. So I became an outrigger canoe racer.
You're with Kehoe, right?
I'm with Kehoe, but I was also with a group out of Foster City when I was living in Northern California. So we raced there and I raced here. Now I'm just here.
Yeah, I know Foster City. Yeah, I had friends there that I would stay with, at times and stuff. But let's go back. Let's see. So you did Ironman, and then you decided to do, oh, what the heck, 100-mile race. And had you did what was the first 50K that you can remember doing? Can you remember?
To qualify for the Western States 100 miler, I had to do the American River 50.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the first half of the American River 50 is along a trail that's relatively flat, and the second half is basically all uphill to the top of the dam.
Yeah.
I was making record time at the halfway point, and by the time I finished, I was just happy to finish. But all I had to do was finish to qualify. And I was on the board of directors of the Western States as well. So I got to see everything from start to finish, inside and out.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting on that board, and Nancy Marsh came running in. She was a race director for other races, and she came into the Auburn High School track, which was the finish for the Western States.
Yeah.
And she had to go 3/4 of a lap to finish the race, and the clock's ticking because she's trying to run it under 24, where you get a gold belt buckle.
Yeah, the golden hour. Yeah.
And we all said, you got it, you got it. Well, she finished in 24:02.
Oh, ouch.
So we had a big board meeting fight about, does she get the gold or not? We decided no. Sorry. It's the way it
Rule's
goes.
the rule.
So next year she comes back and does the exact same thing, about 24:05. I was like, wow.
She's
I think
consistent.
she stopped running Western States after that.
Well, did you finish under 24 your first?
No, I finished my first time. I didn't finish the first year, which was 1983. It was the year of the snow. We had snow for 36 miles, and I never trained in snow, and I was just beat. But I kept going until mile 55.7 at Michigan Bluff, and I went to the doctors, and he looked at my knees. He said, "You can't do any more damage. You can finish if you want to, but you're going to end up walking." Well, that's 40 plus miles of walking now. So I dropped out. My first dropout of a race. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I was determined. I came back the next year and I finished, but I was the last finisher.
Oh, well, that's quite an honor.
Yeah. Then I kept trying to break 24 hours as opposed to the 30-hour cutoff. And every time I would either go out too fast or I would fall or whatever it was, I eventually found out that, or we as the board found out, the race was too short. It was only 94 miles long.
Oh, no.
So we had it remeasured, and the big fight was, do we do it with the new distance, which is a true 100? It's actually 100.1 miles, or not. Well, we decided we would go with it. So then I had to come back, and I finished that in 28:42, which was a big improvement, but it wasn't under 24.
Was Mikey Rouse doing Western back then? Mike Rouse from Texas?
I don't remember that name.
Okay, what about? Well, I don't think Gary's old enough. Gary Wang, because he's
Oh, I
done.
know Gary personally. I've crewed for Gary in the Ultraman. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, one year, Jim King and Jim somebody, I can't remember his last name now. Jim King was the odds-on favorite to win the race. He went out like crazy, and I went with him, and we got lost in the snow.
whoops.
So we get back on track, and he's still in the lead, but this other Jim Howard is his name,
Yeah, yeah.
and Jim Howard just keeps going and keeps going. They get on the track at the Auburn High School for the finish, and Howard sprints to the finish line, and King tried, but he couldn't do it. So Howard beat him.
Oh no.
Howard is on a cot being IV'd and tended by the doctors.
Yeah.
And King's walking around. What the hell happened? So they interviewed him on TV. And he said, I guess I'm just not a sprinter.
Yeah.
So there were some amazing things. Cowman was big on Western States 100.
And
they
Ken.
finally asked him to stop showing up because he was always taking a spot since they had a limited number.
Yeah, Ken actually, wasn't it? Because I know Gordy Ainsley,
Yeah.
and I know Gordy technically is the person who changed it from a horse race to a running race.
Yes.
But my understanding was always that Gordy really didn't finish the first year he ran it, but then Cowman did it the second year, and Cowman was actually the first finisher. But I don't know. That's part of Western States lore.
That's not what I've heard. Yeah.
Depends who if you talk to Gordy, if you talk to Cowman.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to. So I've done Ironman with Cowman. I did Ultraman with Cowman. I've done Western States with Cowman. So after that first 1980, June of 83 Western States, I said, oh, yeah, I'm in great shape. What's the next race? Oh, we've got a new one we're developing back on Hawaii Island called the Ultraman. We're going to circumnavigate the entire island in 320 miles. But you get 3 days to do it with 2 nights of sleep.
Oh, easy.
So I said, I'm in. So I was one of, I don't know, I think we had 38 or 40 starters.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we had maybe 34 or 35 finishers, and I finished.
Was that the year? Were they still going around the island? Because I know some of the years they had to change it a little bit.
Yeah, they've had to change it. Yeah, they went totally around the island, including going up the hill from Waimea up over the Kahala Mountains down to Hawaii, which at night was just brutal. So when that finished me for ultras, I said, that I did it. I can say I did it. I'll talk about it for the rest of my life, but I'm never doing it again.
Yeah, isn't that a joyful double marathon on Queen K coming from Hawaii, Dakota?
I was totally dressed in white, head to toe, and I still got sunburned.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I was. Yeah. What's that?
Have you done Ultraman?
No, I'm not good enough to do that. I was the race marshal for Ultraman for like 10 years. I'd be on the motorcycle and I'd be the bat. It was hilarious because the first few years I did it, it was only me and one other guy. And the athletes would be friendly to us before the race. Of course, it's all, Ohana and everything. Yeah. During the race, athletes wouldn't come up and talk to me at all because they were afraid I might call a penalty.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute. No, it's okay. I'm just here to make sure you're safe. I'm not here to call penalties and stuff on you.
I understand from Cheryl and David, who put the race on now in place of Jane Bacchus, that they're doing some kind of a Zoom meeting Thanksgiving weekend, which is when the race is normally held, because it's been canceled for this year.
Oh yeah. I got too old to ride the motorcycle and stuff, so I haven't helped. I didn't help last year, and then the year before, I just helped at the turnaround because they had to change the course because of the lava flow. Yep. Madame Pele always wins. Never, we love you, Madame Pele. But they had to change the course, so I was helping out at the top of Waikoloa Road and the upper road and stuff. That was then a part of the bike course where they had to make the turn and stuff there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I miss those days. I miss doing that, but I have to be reasonable with I shouldn't be on a motorcycle going around the island for 3 days. Probably not a good idea.
You know a fellow by the name of Corey Folk?
I know Corey.
Yeah. He heads up the Brazilian Ultraman now, which has also been canceled for this year.
Oh, yeah, well, and
my inspiration.
To make it clear, his Ultraman is not part of the official Ultraman.
Yeah.
He's not sanctioned by the what's the nonprofit that's the people at Ultraman and stuff, because they've had a few races like the one in Australia, same thing, where they did it for a few years, and now it's an ultra distance, but it's not an Ultraman race. And Corey and I have had many a discussion about speedos and bike helmets.
Well, he was my inspiration when he had his hip replacement surgery in Chennai, India.
Yeah.
Called a Birmingham resurfacing, and came back and has done really well since then. And when my hip went out in 2005, I had my left hip replaced. I was going to go to Chennai. I was all set to see Dr. Bose, the same doctor he had when he was there. And then I found a doctor at Roseville Kaiser in Northern California who did the Birmingham.
Oh, okay.
And that got me back into competition. But eventually, my hip, which was made of chromium and cobalt, got into my bloodstream.
Oh,
and
really?
So we had to take the whole thing out and start over. So when I moved here in July of 2017, I went to Kaiser in Honolulu and had a new stainless steel hip put in place, and it's been fine ever since.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've always asked Paul Berlin, who's the medical director for Ironman now. He took over from Bob Laird.
Yeah.
About what body parts would he replace in what order, and he says hip first because they've had a ton of practice with hips. The research has long been done. It's in everything. They know a lot about the hips. And then the knee replacement. But they're getting better on the knee replacements now, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. I also had a back problem when I was running Western States. This was back in the mid-'80s, and to the point where I could not move in any position, upright or prone, without pain. I had sciatica. So at that time, a chymopapane enzyme shot into L4 and L5 was still legal. And so I went to Stanford Hospital and had that shot on a Friday afternoon. I woke up Saturday morning and I said, I'm cured. And I got up and I went out that night, and then all the drugs wore off, and it took me 3 months to recover. But it worked, and I've never had a back problem since either.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, not to have two old guys talk about their medical stuff, but yeah, I had some back issues back in the day, and they did me up with cortisone a couple of times. But after the second shot, I just went, nah, no thanks. And then I did PT and stuff, and it's all fine and everything. But yeah, it's amazing what how the medical profession has actually kept pace with the crazy stuff that we do as people push their bodies to the limit. I think I believe it helps medical research because you get these people who are driven to still stay at that level. And look at you. You did Western States how many times? 7?
7. And I did Vermont, and I did Leadville, and there was a Stanford 100-miler too.
Well, now Leadville. See, I used to live in Aspen. I lived in Aspen for like 25 years. Oh. And so I even remember Ken Clover when he was a politician, and I never would vote for him back then.
Yeah, Mary Lee was the co-race director.
Yeah. And that what year did you do Leadville?
I'm going to guess in the late 80s.
Late 80s, yeah.
I also went to Switzerland to run the Swiss Alpine Marathon, which was actually 43 miles in the mountains.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
a fabulous race. And I was trying to run a marathon in every country of the world at one time because I had a travel bookstore and a travel agency. So it fit in with my lifestyle of travel and
Well, that
athletics.
was that the beginning of your Bilbo Boggins days and your your Phineas Fogg.
Yeah, Phileas Fogg. Yeah,
Yeah. Now
that was the
tell me,
name of the bookstore. We specialized in travel, and then I added a travel agency. So
and you have original copies of Around the World in 80 Days, the book, in
I have
various languages.
25 or 26 copies of that title, 26 different languages. Yeah, but actually, in terms of number of copies, probably close to 50
Oh,
copies.
wow.
That book and that movie made by Michael Todd in 1956 are my favorite book and movie.
David Niven, right?
David Niven and Shirley MacLaine
Yeah.
played Princess Iuda. Yeah, and they had all sorts of famous actors and actresses that had cameo appearances.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. It won 5 Academy Awards.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, I remember that movie and stuff. So you're running Ultraman. You did Ultraman 1 year. You did Western States like 7 years.
Right.
Done Leadville. You've done Honolulu. Yeah, countless times. Like we all. Yeah, Honolulu. We're just gonna do Honolulu. Of all the different races that you've done, what was the one race you think that maybe you learned the most about yourself at? Hate to put you on the spot, but
Probably my first Honolulu Marathon when I hit the wall 3 times. I learned a lot about, hey, you better start training, man. You can't just come out and run this thing. And then you hit the wall, and I sit down on the curb, and I'm thinking, no, I'm not finished. No way. And then you start feeling better, and you get up and you start walking, and then you start jogging, and then you start running, and then you hit the wall again. That happened 3 times. And what I learned was just perseverance. Just give it time. Have patience. You'll recover. Just keep going. Don't stop.
What were you doing for, back in the day, we didn't even have Pop Tarts back then, but what were you doing for nutrition back there for races? Gatorade hadn't quite come along yet. I can
Yeah.
remember doing Kool-Aid and
All I remember on the aid stations at Western States and at marathons was water and Coca-Cola with
yeah,
caffeine and sugar.
yeah. And it,
And in fact, we had the Department of Defense come out to Western States and do a study on the runners in terms of what they were ingesting and how they were doing and before and after and during and so on. It was very interesting. They were also testing the effects of ibuprofen,
oh, yeah.
which they determined don't use it. It may give you temporary pain relief, but it does havoc to your body. So if you ingest too much of it, so I stopped taking ibuprofen, which I used to take.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my joke to my friends when I think I joked at LA Marathon, first LA Marathon I did.
Yeah, I ran that one too.
Yeah, I take a Motrin at every aid station. There's an aid station every mile. That means that by the end of the race, I had taken like 26 Motrin. And they said, Joe, they could have cut your legs off. You wouldn't have felt it by then. We didn't know.
You are still alive. That's great.
We didn't know. Yeah, I can remember water, cola. Remember where it was in the beginning, athletes wanted it flat, the cola to be flat for a while, and now it's back to the trend where they want it fizzy in order to get carbonation, in order to be able to belch, essentially.
We used to run Western States, and 3 weeks later, there was the San Francisco Marathon.
So that's a tough one.
We would run San Francisco Marathon just to see if we could finish it after running Westerns. And we all finished, but most of us walked a good part of it, but we got through it.
Have you ever done HURT?
No, I have not. Rick Salmonson, is that his name?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he did Western States. I think his wife did too, PJ.
yeah. PJ did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew them, but I never. By the time I learned about Hertz, I couldn't run anymore.
Oh yeah, well, and that's a nasty. I mean, not a nasty race. That's a very challenging race when it comes to tree roots, as we all know here in Hawaii and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the Vermont 100?
Yeah, Vermont. So I'm doing Vermont with Ron Perkins, a good friend of mine, and we're running together. And he's stopping and drinking at every aid station right from the get-go, doing what he's supposed to do, but he's not peeing.
Oh, bad.
And the water is building up from his ankles up his legs, and they're starting to swell. And we go into an aid station, and the doctor says, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, he's drinking. I don't know. He seems to be okay. He says he's fine." So we run the race, and he comes in 22 hours, no, 23 hours, 22 minutes, 21 seconds. Good time.
Good time.
He sits down, and he says, "I don't feel so good." Really? You haven't peed much at all, and your legs are swollen. So he gets up and he goes outside, and he starts to throw up and pee. So we get him back to the hotel. We put him in bed, and his wife was with him. So she and I went down for dinner, and about an hour later, he comes down and has dinner with us, and he is super thin now. He's eliminated everything out of his body.
Yes, I've seen that same action at the end of Ultraman down at the beach park, where
Yep.
people are that trash can right there. That's mine. That's
Yeah, Ultraman, I'm happy to be there. I'm happy to help in any way I can, but that's it.
yeah.
I couldn't do it now anyway. In fact, I look back on all of this when I was trying to run a marathon in every country of the world, like London and Paris and Berlin.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about Berlin. Very interesting. And I'm wondering, how the hell did I do that? I was just, yeah.
Well,
So-
I chalk it up for my case to stupidity and bad memory.
yeah, definitely
That
bad.
wasn't so
memory.
bad. That wasn't so bad. So what
It's
about
like-
Berlin?
It's like childbirth. It's awful while it's happening, but after you want another child. Yeah. So Berlin, this was when the wall came down,
Oh wow.
and they were going to run the first and last and only East-West Berlin marathon 3 days before reunification of East and West Germany. I said, I'm there.
Yeah.
So 25,000 of us standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate. Gun goes off. We run through the gate, down the Soviet Avenue, past the Soviet War Memorial, around back into West Berlin to the Gewerstetam Cathedral that was left from World War II as a memorial.
Yeah.
Phenomenal race. Loved it. And I said, okay, where do you have showers? Oh, yeah, there's a whole block of showers under a tent. So I go down there, co-ed showers. It was fabulous.
Awesome.
Fabulous.
Awesome. You would have ran faster if you'd known that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't know. Anyway, I ran the London Marathon, and I got to the end, and I got my goodie bag with my towel and my water and so on. I'm sitting on the curb, and this Brit comes across the finish line. He grabs his bag, and he sits down next to me. The first thing he pulls out of his goodie bag is a pack of cigarettes. And he looks at me, and he says, "Would you like a fag?" I said, "I'm in no condition for either one of that meaning of that word." And he said, "I haven't had one of these in about 3 hours." And I couldn't believe it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Some of
Well, you
these
know
experiences-
Kavika, right? From Kiowa Canoe Club.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kavika is famous for doing Western States. And my friend Mike tells the story where they're running along and they get to that aid station that's up on the plateau. That's the second one, I think it is. And Mike is running up there and he sees the guy sitting on a log, and it's Kavika, and he's drinking out of a bottle of Jack Daniels. And he offers Mike, "You want some Jack Daniels?" And Mike goes, "No, thank you anyway." And then later on in the race, Mikey's running, and Kavika comes passing him, and he's rolling a spliff.
Oh,
And he's, I mean, Kavika's done Honolulu. He's passed me, and he does it barefoot too. And
oh my God. So he's not feeling any pain.
yeah, and he's passed me many times, just like toking up. One year, in fact, we were running along past Triangle Park and stuff, and coming down that avenue before you go to Kamehameha Highway, and he's picking up leftover sports things, bars and stuff that are on the ground, and checking them out. And it's like, if they're not open, he's using them. And he said he's told me that he has found like backpacks and stuff. People, as they get along in the race, they go, "I don't want to have this anymore," and they take it off and they just leave it. He says, "Oh yeah, I picked up a lot of equipment along the race." And too, people have to understand too, the European marathons are different than the American marathons, because the American marathons mostly are the process of doing the marathon, finishing. Most of them have some sort of a cutoff. It's usually 7-8 hours, maybe later. Honolulu doesn't really have a cutoff,
Right.
but the most of the marathons in Europe and stuff, oh, there's a cutoff, and there's you got like 5 hours to finish the marathon. There's not much leeway there like we have with a lot of the marathons here.
Well, in Western states, they have cutoff times as well, and they have a crew of runners who follow the back of the pack, not only to pick things up, but to help them if they need it. Because if you get, I crewed for a guy one year, twice he had not finished, and he was determined this third try was going to finish. So we get past Rucky Chucky on the American River, to Brown's Bar, and he sits down. He says, "That's it." I said, "No, it isn't. You're going to finish this race. I didn't come all this way to help pace you for you to sit here." So he's sitting there moping away, and the guy comes through the aid camp, and he says, "1 minute to cut off." And something clicked in his brain. He got up and he ran the entire way to the finish, like 30 some miles. I had everything I could to just keep up with him to the finish. And he finished, and he said, "That's it, never again, but at least I finished."
Yeah, that's
great experiences.
The sweep crew. How great is it to see No Hands Bridge, huh?
Oh, oh God. I remember running down the No Hands Bridge, and then I got to it, and I said, "I'm walking from here." And then, of course, you got an uphill at the end of that trail before you get down to the track. So,
yeah, I was lucky enough in February this year. I did the the Jed Smith 50K 50 miler. So it's part of the American, on the American River course and stuff. That was really nice to be able to run there, especially in February.
Beautiful area.
Yep. People are great too. People that, maybe if they're not an ultra runner or an ultra person, they don't understand that it is like the Ultraman motto. It is Kokua and Ohana, and it is really all of that which draws so many people to it.
Absolutely, no question. I look back very fondly at my athletic background, other than when I was hurt playing football. That wasn't so fun, but because it ended my career.
Yeah.
But then I was able to recover and do all this other wild, crazy stuff, and I can still race. I've done the Queen Lily and the other races.
So, do you have any? Do you run or bike at all anymore?
No, absolutely no running, only walking. I try to do that daily.
Yeah.
And the reason is, my doctor said after the surgery, he says, "If you go back to running, you will be back here in 1 to 2 years to redo this."
Oh,
said,
shit.
"No way. I'm not coming back." So then I was biking quite a bit actually, and I finally decided it was just too dangerous. I just
Yeah.
I and my friends have all had crashes, and we just decided why. I'd rather swim, paddle, and walk.
Yeah. I went to I live in Wyman. I went to Kona yesterday, I guess it was. I did a lot of driving yesterday, but I saw the HCC was out there. You know, a lot of the people at the Hawaii Cycling Club were out there. And to be honest, I won't name the name, but I saw a friend of mine who also, well, they were out on Queen K in a gray kit, you know, kind of a light gray kit and no lights on their bike, you know, no flashing lights at the back or the front. And it was like I wanted to stop and call a penalty right there because it's like, come on, you know better, you know. And most people now, you know, like when I go out on Queen K, I have a light on front and back. I always wear bright clothes. I always wear high vis clothes, and it's just.
So you're the epitome of the saying, once a judge, always a judge.
Yeah, it's in my nature, unfortunately. It's like, I won't say anything, but I might tease somebody about it later and stuff. It's like the times that we were talking about bike helmets and stuff, and the times that I've had discussions with friends of mine about a bike helmet, you know, where they say, "Well, I'm just riding around in the neighborhood. I don't know. Can I hold you up by your ankles and drop you on the cement? Is it going to be any less hard on your head?" And hey, that's, you know, as a certified safety instructor for PATH, you know, People's Advocacy for Trails. Why that's one of the things I missed this year is not being able to go into the schools and teach the kids and stuff. And Lilio Kalani, you know, obviously the race was canceled.
Right.
I don't think we have anything coming up. Honolulu, they finally canceled and turned it into a virtual race. The Hilo to Volcano race. You ever do Hilo to Volcano, the 50K?
No.
That's a fun race. There's only one hill.
I couldn't run anymore when I found out about it.
There's only one hill. And we actually have a race, a trail race coming up the 28th. So in 2 weeks, a week, at Jennifer Rial's property, where Billy Barnett's wife is a race director, and she's putting on. It's an 8-mile loop, and you can do 4 loops, 8 loops, 2 loops, or whatever.
Did you ever run the Run to the Sun race on Maui?
You know, I've missed that one. I saw that a bunch of people have done that for many years. You know, every year that you know, Carl Wordle over in Maui. Carl's an old friend of mine. Him and I are same age group, so we're a little bit younger than you. But Carl did that race every year that they had it. Kurt tried to do it last year to revive it, but they at the last minute the Park Service wouldn't give them the permit to go up into the park, so they had
That
to
was one
cancel.
of the best races. It's in my top 5 of races.
It's only what, 30 miles, if that.
Yeah, I'm thinking 36, but I don't remember for sure. It's basically all uphill except for one little section, and you run through rain clouds. You have phenomenal views. I loved it. I thought it was good.
Yeah. Did you ever go up and then run down?
No, I took a car down. But they had bikes coming down while we were running up, which was crazy.
Well,
I looked at that and said, all you have to do is have one mechanical failure and you're toast.
Oh yeah, well that's like our P-Man races that we here have had on the Big Island, where it's the pedal to you puke, run to your Ralph up Coloco Road, where you can run 6.5 miles up, or you can bike it. And I watched a friend of mine came. He biked it up, finished the race, and then he biked down, and he had carbon brakes, carbon fiber wheel, and stuff. And he got down to the bottom, and the carbon fiber had shredded. And I'm going, yipes! You know, that's not a good thing. So sometimes technology needs a little bit of improvement and stuff.
Yeah,
When
I
you were
agree.
running, did you or doing your stuff? Did you ever have a favorite brand of shoe or anything? What'd you run in?
Um, I re- when I first started, I ran in some form of Nikes with a waffle sole,
Yeah,
and then I was having structural bone problems, so I went to a podiatrist and I got orthotics, which
yeah,
helped immensely. I still wear them, like 40 years.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I don't think I had any particular favorite shoe or brand. Um, I did have a favorite bicycle for triathlons.
Oh,
I used to,
what was your bike?
I was I, I started with Trek, but I moved to Cannondale, and I
Oh,
really
okay.
liked the Cannondale bikes for for me anyway. And of course, for the swim, almost doesn't matter what you wear.
Wait, now I like it when there's swims where it has the if it's a certain temperature, it's okay to wear a wetsuit.
Yeah, I've done one race, maybe two like that. It was an Ironman at Russian River, and we were swimming in the river against the current. So, and it was cold, so we had wetsuits, and we started at below, and we swam against the current up, which was a real workout. But once you turned around, man, did we zoom back down. Oh, fantastic. I did my fastest swim, Ironman swim in that current.
Yeah, there's a couple of races too where it's the water is shallow enough where you have a choice of running or swimming.
That I never encountered. I guess you could do it. Why not? So,
Now, when you were doing triathlons, how did you have a particular method of training? I mean, I know there's a lot of coaches and stuff. Did you ever have a coach?
no, I read a lot of books. I did my own training, no club or anything like that. And I would, when I first started, I would do 2 workouts a day, 5 days a week. So I would swim in the morning, followed by a bike ride, then brunch, a nap, and then I'd run in the afternoon. And then I keep changing that up. I also did yoga big time for stretching, and I did a lot of running in place in the swimming pool to elongate my spine and my body.
Did you have a one of those flotation belts?
It was actually a vest. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
it was good. Now I carry my own internal inflation device or flotation device. I
Yeah,
don't
I know
need the
that.
I don't need the belt or the vest.
Yeah, I
So,
was I was rehabbing from something where I had to do pull stuff, and I had one of those belts and stuff. And sometimes those workouts were harder.
they can be, yeah. I used to work out at the YMCA in Redwood City when I lived back there, and that was fine. But I can't imagine going back into a swimming pool, even here in downtown Kailua. I will not swim in a pool. I just doesn't do it for me.
I
I used to be an underwater photographer, scuba diver. I just love the ocean. So,
Yeah, I had two areas where I swam in because I lived in Colorado for a lot of years, and I was bouncing back and forth. And my home pool was the Glenwood Springs Hot Springs, which is a
oh,
natural hot springs,
yeah.
huge pool and stuff. And people would always tell me, "Well, you're going to have a hard time in races, because if you go to like Hawaii and stuff, because you'll be swimming in warm salt water." And I'm going, "I'm swimming in warm salt water here." Yeah, I could never get into the Kona pool that much. I mean, I used to go every once in a while, but it was like chlorine, and
Lane lines, and you got to stop and turn and come back. And just, yeah. And nothing to see except the black line on the bottom of the pool.
oh yeah, and I'm proud. Carlin, yeah,
Who?
Carlin. She's a swim instructor.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
Carlin. She had me up at her house one time, and her to do as a courtesy to me to do a video and stuff and show me what's wrong with my swim, which I already know. And I'm proud to say that I actually was able to sink her flotation thing. Sorry, that's the way I swim. My
We
nickname is
all have
Bob.
claims to fame.
Yeah, I mean, we are lucky to have the ocean and stuff
Oh,
to be able to swim in.
that's why I lived in Kona Plaza on Ali'i Drive in downtown Kailua, Kona. I can literally walk down to the pier.
Now, now your career as a underwater photographer and scuba diver, where did that happen?
I was here over the Christmas holidays with a buddy, and he had to go home, and I was alone, and I was reading a magazine that said learn to scuba dive. So I called the guy up here in Kona. He took me off the beach at the King Cam. That's where I learned how to dive, and I loved it. So I went back to home in California, and I became Maui certified at Foothill Community College. And the instructor said, I'm leading a trip to the shipwrecks in the Truk Lagoon in Micronesia later this summer. Would you like to come? I said, yeah. He said, well, there's only one problem. You got to get advanced registration or certification.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what do I have to do? He said, well, here's the course. So I go through the course, we're in the pool, and then we go to the ocean down in Monterey. The final is at Cannery Row, just off Cannery Row.
Yeah.
And what's playing at the theater at Cannery Row but Jaws?
Perfect.
And he says, I forbid you to see that movie until you pass this course. So we went off the beach and, lead weights and suit and the whole thing. And he says, okay, here's your final exam. He says, we're going out into 15 feet of water. You can't see anything.
Yeah.
You're going down to the bottom. You're going to take everything off.
Yeah.
Except your wetsuit. You're going to come back up. You're going to go back down, put it all back on, and come back up. Man, that was the hardest thing I've ever done.
That's
you
tough.
can't see anything. So
yeah.
So I passed that. I raced back up to my car parked on Cannery Road, threw everything in the trunk, and raced over to the theater to see the movie. I walk in and it's already started, so everything is dark.
Yeah.
Here, bum, 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 bum. And then they go, bam. And oh my God.
Gives
I
new meaning.
Now understand.
Gives new meaning to the our scuba signal.
Yes. So I went to Micronesia. I dove on the shipwrecks. I had absolutely no interest in photography my entire life up to that point. And everyone around me had cameras. I came back and I said, that's it. And I took a Nikon class and I bought equipment and I practiced. And then every time I went diving around the rest of the world, I had my camera with me, lights and you name it. And eventually I grew tired of it because it's so much bulky and heavy. Now you have these little things that are almost as good.
Yeah. So you were a Nikon guy? You had Nikons and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I had back in the day and stuff, too. Well, our good friend Susie Dezagon, from Ultraman. Yes. Susie is, an awesome instructor and diver, and she still does it all the time. She's out there all the time.
I haven't been scuba diving since about 85 or 86. I've snorkeled a lot, which I enjoy, but I've decided it wasn't worth the hassle anymore. I'd done it and move on to the next company or next thing or whatever.
Yeah, I got certified. Larry Leadham was a friend of mine in Kona, and he taught at Captain Jack's, I think. And he got me certified, and I have asthma, so it was always a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I never had those kind of problems. No ear problems, no lung problems. I was fortunate. I've been in good health most of my life, unless I was injured in some way, like football, or I crash on the bike. And
those are self-inflicted injuries. Yeah.
So I went to Russia 8 times.
Yeah.
The U.S. State Department to help them bootstrapped their economy back in the 90s. Remember, they fell apart in Christmas of 91, and Yeltsin took over as the president.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Gorbachev was out. And we were sent over to help them because we were very concerned about their nuclear arsenal, which was and may still be the largest in the world.
Yeah.
But we were taking only experience and advice, no money. And I worked with all sorts of people, from individuals to small to big companies. Very interesting. And I was stationed as the business director in Volgograd, formerly Stalingrad.
Yeah.
I've been to Petersburg, Moscow. So the first night we fly into Moscow and we stay overnight at the Rus Hotel, and then we fly down domestically on Aeroflot to Volgograd.
Yeah.
Those days were Cowboy City as far as flights were concerned. I can go into details, but another time. So
Yeah, Russia's special.
We are approached at our office in Volgograd by some people who want to put a roof over our operation. Really? What are you talking about? We would like payment. Payment for what? For us not to destroy you.
Yeah, in the Far East, they call that bakshish. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had American consultants, Russian consultants, and translators. And one of the Russian consultants from St. Petersburg was a security guy. And he said, I'll take care of it. We never had a problem since then. And that's his business even to this day. But we stayed at the Oktoberskaya Hotel, which was the Apparatchik R&R hotel in Moscow. And I arrived and I turned the water on in the bathroom and nothing comes out of the spigot.
You want water?
I called down and I said, what's going on? He said, well, they turned the water off for the weekend. This was a Friday night. We don't know when it'll come back on. We're hoping Sunday night. But there's a gallon and a half of water under your sink, which you can use for washing. Okay. That was, and then everything is centrally controlled. So they heat the entire building. When do they heat it? During the day. At night, we're already in bed under the covers. No heat whatsoever. You freeze your tail. Yeah. So it was really an experience. In fact, of the 8 people that I went over with, 2 of them within days, we can't take it. We're out of here.
Just left, yeah.
Totally different. But I got to know a very good translator that I still communicate with. She's still involved in that. And we had some real successes and some real failures. The number one failure was the executive director or managing director of the Red October tank factory in Volgograd that made all the tanks.
Yeah.
And he was a true communist. And when everything fell apart, he said, I don't know what to do. Help me. I said, well, what did you used to do? He said, I used to produce tanks. They would tell me, I want 100 tanks by this date. I'd make 100 tanks by that date, whatever. But nobody tells me anything anymore. So I don't know what to do. He was a total utter failure. But we got 2 housewives whose husbands were working. Their kids were grown up and they were bored. So they came to us and said, we want to do something in business. I said, well, what are you doing now? Well, we have a little retail shop on some street in Volgograd. Volgograd is 90 kilometers long by about 5 kilometers wide, 1.2 million people.
Oh.
Yeah. I said, well, let me come over to your shop and see what you're doing. So I arrived and there is a van unloading inventory for their shop. He's not on the street. He's right up against the building on the sidewalk with his rear door open so he can take the stuff out and take it right into the shop. Funny things go on. So I go in the shop and I see snow tires and batteries and lingerie and stationery and calculators and pens. And I said, what are you selling here? Whatever we get our hands on. I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
really? I said, where do most of your customers come from? Well, they come from across the street. Well, what's across the street? Well, it's Volgograd University. I said, oh, and what do they need? Well, they need paper and pens and pencils and calculators and stuff for school. I said, we're going to become a stationery store and we're going to sell. That's going to be our target market. They ended up with 5 stores in Volgograd. Utter total success. Even one of them came back to the United States and toured to see what stationery stores were like here.
Wow.
So when I had Phileas Fogg's at the Stanford Shopping Center, I would have these various Russian groups that came over, like the lawyers or the bakers or the retailers, and I'd show them Stanford Shopping Center, and they were blown away about what was going on. So I was going over usually twice a year, and then entertaining people when they came over here. It was really, really interesting.
Now, tell me a little bit about again about the bookstore and everything that you did with that, because that sounds really interesting. Where was it just a bookstore?
Right. Well, after I sold Creative, I started to travel, and including the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, which I attended opening the closing ceremonies because I've
I
always
was
been
there
a
too.
Olympic fan. So I came back from that, and I'm walking down the main street called University Avenue in downtown Palo Alto, and I see a sign that says Phileas Fogg's Books and Maps. I said, I know who Phileas Fogg is. I've been a publisher. I like books. I like maps. I walked in. I said, how can I help you? And there were two owners, 2 proprietors. And they were doing everything by hand, and they were losing their shirt. They'd been open for about a year, and I had just found them. So I said, can I just hang out? Let's go through the Christmas season and see what happens. So I soon realized after the Christmas season, they weren't going to make it. There's no way. They weren't business people. They were book people. So I made them an offer they couldn't refuse. And I bought them and incorporated it, and made them minority shareholders where I controlled it. And we expanded the store. We started to do slideshows and workshops. We computerized everything. We started to put out a newsletter. And Stanford came over and they said, we like what you're doing here. You're a Stanford grad, yeah? I said, yeah. We'd like you to come over to the Stanford Shopping Center a mile away. I said, show me the way. So I moved over there in September of '86. I bought the place in April 1st of '85. And that was a great move for us. We got a better space and really better parking, the whole thing. We went to town. So then I added a travel agency to the bookstore because I wanted to be a total travel service center. So we would do author signings, slideshows, workshops, and we had quite a following. I had a list of 10,000 customers on my computer.
Oh yeah.
I would purge that every day because every month we made a mailing of a $2 off coupon, unsolicited. Come on, get people in, and it went first class. So if it didn't get delivered, we found out their new address or the fact that they weren't around anymore, so I would delete them. So it was always an up-to-date mailing list. And I was going along, and I found a new space at the Stanford Shopping Center, and we expanded. We had a 24-foot high ceiling, and I put a hot air balloon in it that came down.
Geez. Oh, well, yeah.
The cash register area that was the basket of the balloon, and I could see the 150 people now instead of 75, going gangbusters. And the next thing I know, my father becomes ill in January of 2001, and he dies in May. Leaving my mother a widow at age 87.
Wow.
And they're in Southern California, so I'm back and forth trying to help her. And I finally decided, I'm going to put her in a home, and I'm going to sell the business because I know exactly who's going to buy this they've been coming here for 10 years trying to get into the Stanford Shopping Center, and Stanford has consistently said, sorry, we already have a travel bookstore here. It was Rand McNally.
Oh, wow.
McNally the third and his VP of retailing, Vicki Danowitz, came by. And the first year they came in, I could tell they were casing the place. But I didn't say anything. A year later, they come back, and I'm saying, oh, they're definitely doing something. The third year of 10 years, I just walked up to them and said, hi, my name's Fred Hornbruch. I own this bookstore. How can I help you? And they were sort of taking it there. And they had to reveal who they were. And every year they'd come back and, hi, how are you? And they had stores, they had 22 stores across the country, including Ala Moana in Honolulu. So when my dad died and I put my mother in a home, I called them up because I knew they wanted to get into the shopping center. And they came out in late August, finally came out. And we put together an agreement where Stanford was the landlord and I would sell the company to Rand McNally so they could open in Stanford Shopping Center. And they offered me a choice of either being an independent contractor or an employee, where I could set up travel agencies in their stores the way I had done in my store.
Oh, wow.
So I would have 22 stores to work with. Great. We're just going back to get board approval. We'll be out next week. Next week was the famous Tuesday, 9/11.
Oh, geez.
They called me up that morning and said, we're really sorry, but the deal's off. 6 months later, they went bankrupt and closed all of their stores. The travel industry went into the tank.
Yeah.
And I realized it was over. There was no one else going to buy it. So I just closed it down, paid off all my debts, and retired.
Stanford didn't want to keep it open or anything, or they just didn't, things were not in their field.
Just wanted to collect rent.
Yeah.
And I had a very good working relationship with them, but they didn't know anyone, and I didn't know anyone else that would buy it. So the choice was to close it down. So
well, sometimes that's fate.
Yeah. Unlike selling creative publications where I made a lot of money and everybody was happy and it was successful, this was just the opposite.
Yeah, but you got to meet one of the actual McNallys.
Yeah. And so fortunately I had enough assets to survive. And so I did my own travel now. I was working with Rotary International, leading some of their trips. Got into authoring and editing and publishing.
Well, yeah, you've helped quite a number of people have their books published, correct?
Yeah. Jim Gibbons is the most recent one with the Jog Down Memory Lane. I'm working on another one with an East German woman who's a peddler. She was born and raised in East Germany under communism and then moved to West Germany, and she's writing a book. I've got about 5 of my own books that I'm trying to get to, but I've never seemed to do it. But I've written 3 or 4.
Oh, just 3 or 4.
Yeah, they're on Amazon, but what do I?
Well, I got a book floating around too that I wrote it in the early 1990s, way back when. Surprisingly enough, it was about global warming and science fiction, and people kind of went, "You're crazy." Oh, okay.
You were prescient. You're ahead of your time.
Yeah, now in all the races, I'm behind my time.
That's like the guy who said, I used to have a hard chest and a hard stomach, but that's all behind me now.
Yeah, but you're still staying active. Are you? So I was at Honolulu Drive, I want to say 3 weeks ago to do one loop of the 100% Kona Marathon course to go down to the pit and back and stuff. And it was pretty quiet in town. I mean, it was kind of funny. Most of the people I saw I saw very few pedestrians, but I saw a fair amount of people on bikes. And the people on bikes, they had masks, but they didn't have helmets.
Yeah, I know.
Go figure.
And we're
And
getting a lot of tourists now
I
that are
was going to
coming
say, if things picked up,
considerably to the point where I'm starting to get annoyed. Too many people.
wait, hey, when we get old, it's like, hey, get off of my grass. Come on.
Amazing how your perspective changes.
Well, yeah, because the same thing on up where I run, up on Mana, I've noticed a few, maybe one or two rental cars, because you can always spot the rental cars and people
Yeah.
that I don't know, and pretty much we're lucky we live on an island where we know everybody essentially, or everybody knows us, you know, and it's been encouraged. And I know down at I was talking to somebody who works down at Waikoloa, and they says, "Oh yeah, it's kind of getting somewhat back to normal." And the Fairmont just opened up, and
Even the King Cam just opened.
King Cam is open. Mauna Kea, I heard, was going to open like December 1st. I think they were going to wait, or maybe December 15th, something like that.
Kona Seaside is open. Royal Kona Resort is open. Most, but not all, restaurants are now open
Yeah.
in Kona.
Oh, and I think that the idea where they gave the that restaurant credit card to people, I think
Yes,
that was a pretty good idea, as long as people don't use it to go shopping at Costco. To be honest,
I don't think they can do that. I thought
no,
it was only for restaurants.
probably not, because I know there's a couple of restaurants up here in Waimea, the Noodle Club and
Yeah,
Lily Koi Cafe, that I frequent, anyway and stuff. But to be able to have people to go in and eat at a restaurant, and it's mostly takeout still, here, up in Waimea. There's a couple of the places I think have in dining. I don't know if Merriman's does or not, but I think that was a good idea, and it looks like they've extended it to where companies like the hotels can actually buy cards for their employees to encourage their employees to go eat at the restaurants and stuff.
oh, that's good. Let me recommend a new restaurant here in Kona. It's called Willie's Hot Chicken.
Oh, I know those guys.
Yeah,
The two of
and
us or whatever.
say again.
What they call the two of us, or is it Norbert?
I don't know who's behind it, but I eat there at least once a week because I really like the people and the food. And right next to them, in that same little complex, Umeki's has opened up a new restaurant. They moved from their old place. So you have Umeki's, you have Willie's Hot Chicken, and there's another place right on the other side of Willie's. I haven't been to, but Jim Buddy told me it was great.
It's right across from the gas station, right? On Hualalai. Hualalai and Kuakini?
No.
No? Oh, I'm thinking of a different place then.
You know where the Kona Brewery is?
Yes.
That street that leads into the Kona Brewery is where Umeki's and Willie's and so on are located. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so Umeki's moved from the corner
Yep.
to around the corner then.
Exactly.
Okay. That's the old, actually, that I bet you one of those locations it used to be Sue's Thai restaurant like
Yes.
20 years ago and stuff. Back in the day where you'd go into a restaurant and the lights would dim every once in a while because it was just our normal. Well, we don't have enough power for the whole island, so we're gonna have to do brownouts for a little bit.
Well,
Well,
I
that's
walk when I'm not paddling, which is usually two times a week. I walk and I walk all around here, so I can see who's open, who's closed, how many people are on. They have a real homeless problem.
yeah.
With a guy, a so-called ambassador, who stands right next to all of them down here on the wall by the ocean, and
Oh,
it's
I went.
coming back.
Yeah, I went down there when I did that the half marathon course and stuff. That was the week before Ironman would have been. And it was my friend Mike Rouse normally runs his age, and he's an old bugger like us. He's 68. Well, he's kind of young actually, and he would run his age on Elite Drive. And so he'd run 68 miles on Elite Drive,
Oh,
and then finish up at the pier. And I had instituted the Fireball Mile, where it's like a beer mile, where you take a shot of Fireball at the start, and then every quarter mile you take another shot of Fireball. And I went down there. I was the only one participating this year, and so I went down there, and as I was, kind of taking shots of the Fireball on the seawall, and yeah, there was this one weird guy that kept approaching me, and I went, "Yeah, go away. I know too many police officers. Don't worry about it." And who's walking up but Mr. Ken Shriek? The
oh,
cowman is walking up to me, and I hadn't seen him for at least 2 years, or at
yeah.
least a year.
I haven't seen him in ages.
And so I took one photo of him, and I talked to him for a little bit. He looks okay. He looks physically okay and stuff. I mean, his legs he's had the phlebitis and stuff going on in his legs. He's not doing any races. And but he was okay, and we chatted for a little bit. But I thought that was so ironic, as I'm doing this Fireball as it used to be part of Ultraman, kind of, and part of Mikey, part of Ironman, and here comes
Where is he
Cowman.
living? Where is he
He's
living?
living in the senior center over on Walleye, up the hill there.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's living
I
there.
used to be good friends with his brother Don Church,
Oh yeah.
and Joanne, Don's wife. Yeah. But they moved from the KO area back to Southern California for medical purposes. They were having problems.
Well, I love his stories about when he flies, where he would talk his way into first class every flight that he could, because he would walk on the plane and just go, "Do you know who I am?" And he'd give his spiel, his story and stuff. And it's like, it's just too bad that so many, like, to be honest, I was talking to friends where I run, and they're young people now. They're in their 30s, or sometimes in their 40s. That's still young.
Yeah.
And I explained to them, well, I just saw a cowman. And they look at me like, what? What are you talking about? They don't, they
Yeah.
don't understand some of the history. It's like the people in Western states that I know now, that if I mention names at about, oh, you did Western States, do you know so and so? And they go, got no idea who that person is. And it's
You
like,
remember Walt Stack?
oh yeah, yeah, Walt, sure.
He was on the Johnny Carson show, and about every third word they had to bleep out. So Cowman came on, not the same night, but a different night. And Johnny asked him, so I understand your name is Cowman. What's your real name? He says, Cowman. He says, well, is that your first name? Well, it's my first name and my last name. Oh, really? Well, what's your middle name? Cowman.
CCC. Oh yeah,
CCC,
he kind of recognizes me as soon as I say Ken. As soon as I go, Ken, hey Ken, how you doing and stuff. He kind of like, oh, okay, he makes the connection between me and who I am, as opposed to just somebody else who says, cowman to him and stuff. Oh yeah, those guys, and like Jim, Buddy, Dr. Jim, and all the races that they did. Alvin up here at Commonwealth Liquors, and Alvin still runs and
Oh my
stuff.
God.
Yeah, Alvin's still out there running. Like, I think he said he was running like 3 times a week. And I ran into Lisa and Eddie. Eddie used to paddle and stuff. Lisa she did Ironman 1980, back when it was still on Oahu.
Yeah.
And they both have done this. I was chatting them, and they said they both said, "Oh, we've done Western States." And I went, "Oh, really?" They've done Western States horse race,
Oh,
which that people will go, "What do you mean there's a horse race?" You don't understand.
yeah, that's really interesting because I actually crewed for a horse racer in
Oh,
that race. And every time we came to an aid station, the doctors would run over to the horse.
yeah, yeah.
And I can remember we got to Michigan Bluff, and they were required to rest the horse for 30 minutes or something like that. It was a long pit stop. So this guy knew somebody who had a house there. He would go over and shower and have a meal, and then come back and get on his horse and finish the race. I was amazed at those horses, though, how well they ran in the dark. Just incredible.
Oh yeah, and Lisa had a lot of stories. She's actually a pig hunter too,
Oh,
and she's, I want to say 78 or thereabouts. And it's like I'm gonna look see because I can't remember. Oh, Eddie Galano, Lisa and Eddie Galano, and stuff, and they live over La Pahoehoe, Pailo kind of area and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, the stories that you run into, if you, well, we've always known in Hawaii, you take the time to stop and talk to people.
oh yeah.
That's just part of the deal, you know.
That's why you and I and so many other people want to live here. It's just different style of life, different quality. Yeah.
And so far, Waimea has been, uh, it's been pretty steady. Everything that's going on, it's good to see. It's actually encouraging to see the kids back in school, you know, and getting away. At some of the schools can get away from the remote learning, and everything so far, knock on wood, has been going pretty much okay. I have the utmost respect for my teacher friends like Bree and everybody else who teaches at schools. Man, they are just, normally they put their heart and soul into it, and now it's just amazing the job that they're doing.
You know, I became a substitute teacher here, and I have not worked a day in 2020.
Are you at Kahakai, or you can go to any of the schools?
Kealakekua.
Oh, Kealakekua. Oh, okay.
Oh no, no, not
Kealakekei.
Kealakekei.
Oh, Kealakekei. Yeah.
Elementary, middle, and senior. I've worked all three, and I've worked the Kai, and I decided with the COVID that I would wait. You know, I'm 78. I just don't want a chance.
Yeah, I mean that's like with me with the bike ed stuff, because I'm usually the person who gets the students who don't know how to ride bikes. So I'm like super up personal and close. You know that more than once they've shared whatever they had going on, you know, and
Yeah.
stuff. So hopefully by next year that there's encouraging news about the vaccines and stuff. And oh, I got my flu shot, and I got my second. I don't know if you've gotten yet the shingles shot.
I've gotten both my shingles and my flu.
How did the first shot affect you, man? The first shingles shot, man, it was tough for me.
Nothing.
Oh, well, you're tough.
I have a high tolerance for pain, obviously.
Well, I like I mentioned before, I think a part of it with us sometimes is the fact that our memories are so bad. And it's like you think about the race that you did, and you go, that wasn't too bad. I don't remember anything about it. Well, Fred, thank you so much. I'm glad. And you know that sound went away.
Really?
Yeah. So now it's been fine for like at least half of our little discussion here.
Do you have any idea what it was?
Menahune, as we say here in Hawaii. I don't know. There was something floating around. I don't know what it was and stuff, but it's gone now. So that's been great that we'll have at least you know most of it will be clear and everything. Is there any advice you want to give to people? Any recommendations? Any sponsorships? Anything you want to say? You know, as we kind of close up here.
Well, I live by the following philosophy. The more you know, the more there is to know. The more you do, the more there is to do. And the more you see, the more there is to see. So self-education, educating other people, doing things. I tend to be a doer, and I love travel. So it's been a great life, and I expect another 22 years.
That's great. We can do a virtual fist bump here. Here we go. Okie dokie. I'm gonna pause
Well,
us.
thank you for the opportunity. As far as charities, I've been big in Rotary International, and they have a foundation. So they are doing the Polio Plus program, where they've been eradicating polio from the face of the earth. And they almost were there. They had like 2 countries left, and now I think it's back to 3 or 4. But it's a moving target. But they've spent an untold number of dollars and hours worldwide, and I've actually led trips to other countries giving
wow.
polio drops on kids' tongues. It's really interesting.
Wow.
So
Well, I'll put that as a link and stuff. So if people want to,
RotaryInternational.org, I think it is.
yeah, yeah, I'll find it and stuff. That's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and pause. Oh, mahalo to Fred Hornbruch for taking the time. Sorry we had technical issues. I wasn't able to figure it out, but eventually that there's a little background noise. It's not feedback. It's kind of a little high pitched thing. Hopefully you didn't notice it maybe. But I'm glad Fred and I have finally had a chance to get to amazing what he's done, besides Western States, Ultraman, so many other events, athletic events that he did, plus all the businesses that he helped start and help people, and his time in Russia. Like I said, like I've always said, it's good to stop, listen, and talk to people, because you get some amazing stories, which I hope you will be listening to our amazing stories here at Hawaii Ultra. And again, it'd be great if you could subscribe, if you could maybe write a review on iTunes. It helps a bunch and stuff. If you want to contribute, you can go to our Patreon site at hawaiiultra.com or at patreon.com/Hawaii Ultra. And again, I'm just doing this so that people will be able to listen and see what other people have done across the world, across the island. I'm hoping to do it a little bit more regular and stuff, but it's always based on other people's times, and I don't want to pressure anybody into doing anything, especially nowadays when everybody's got a lot going on. So again, hope you're getting out, you're staying active, being safe, and wearing a mask, and being responsible, and definitely showing aloha.